But one of the tasks we had was to go through about 7,000 Slowways names and pick out the rude ones.
Yes.
and there was about 200 to 300 Slowway names that were just so offensive, and not even just offensive, almost like Cards Against Humanity, kind of like desperately disgusting sort of like ideas and words.
Hello there. My name is Kit Rackley. My pronouns are they, them, and this is Coffee and Geography. The aim of the show is to get to know, explore and celebrate the diverse and intersectional range of people on this rock we call home and their love and passions of it. We'll find out why guests identify as geographers, and if they don't exactly, we'll have fun exploring all the myriad of ways that connects their life to geography. So, pour your favourite brew, get cosy and listen in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at CoffeeJogPod. Off we go. Hello everybody and welcome back to Coffee and Geography. So I have got a gorilla with me. Not that kind of gorilla, a gorilla geographer with me, who's I'm very, very delighted to speak to. I haven't spoken to him for a couple of years now, so it's excellent to catch up. Dan Raven-Ellison, hello and welcome.
Hi Kit, how you doing? It's good to be with you.
Yeah, so the last time we've been chatting off and on through the digital ether, but I think the last time, was it 2017 or 18? I think that we were at the GA. You did a talk, one of the keynote talks at the GA conference, the Geographic Association conference, I believe.
That's right. That was a fun conference pre-pandemic. I think that was one of the last big conferences I was at, maybe that I can remember.
Yeah, and that was your talk about Guerrilla Geography. So to introduce you to everybody, as we've already said, like Dan uses Guerrilla Geography to challenge himself and others to think differently about the world. He does this through campaigns, collaborations and films, ranging from founding the National Park City, so London National Park City, to showing what the UK looks like from above in 100 seconds. And everyone's got to check that out. But we spoke to one of your rangers earlier on in the season, Katie Water.
Yeah, I know you did. I had a listen. It was a great interview.
Yeah, lovely Katie Water. So, and I think, how's that all going for you, the London National Park City stuff? It seems to be, I mean, from the outside looking in, it seems to be really, really successful and a lot of enthusiasm about it. But how do you feel that's going at the moment?
The whole thing's sort of kind of ridiculous in a way. I mean, we sort of started the whole thing off just as a website, as a provocation, as like a geographic provocation, where we just created a website for the London National Park and put an asterisk at the end of it and said it was officially only a notional park. Yeah. And then seven years later, it's happened, and there are other cities around the world who want to follow suit. So it's quite funny, really, but at the same time, incredibly awesome.
Yeah, and I remember that kind of like near the start, and you were kind of talking about this kind of thing and how it was really, really an awareness campaign of like the beauty and the greenery that you can find in London, and trying to get people more in tune with their environment in the capital city, and for it to actually go what it is, engage communities and be so official, and now have actual rangers, like Katie, like other people, and that green ground map as well. That was, based on the London. Oh, it's just a thing of beauty. All those different talents and all those different intersectionalities. It's awesome.
Yeah, we can't quite stake claim for the green ground map. That's Helen's who does that mapping, which is absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and it's sort of these incredible maps she creates of not just London. I think she's done like Bristol and some other cities now, where it looks like a tube map.
Yeah.
But actually, it's about walking around the city through all the green spaces, which is absolutely fantastic. But there are other people who have done fantastic mapping around the National Park City. So Charlie Peel is this incredible cartographer who, I think a lot of the mapping of London historically has been like the roads and the buildings. And OS maps are fantastic, but they're not really great for getting around urban areas. And Charlie helped to turn that on its head and show London as a landscape and not just as a maze of roads.
Well, Helen or Charlie, if you're listening, I'd love for you to come and chat. Well, you said, and we mentioned that video about UK from above in 100 seconds, which I strongly recommend. I'm not even, just look it up. It's amazing. I'm not even going to describe it. But in terms of this chat, then, I think we're even going to struggle to keep this to below 100 minutes, to be honest, with some of the amazing stuff I want to talk to you about. But we'll see what naturally comes up. So we'll start off with our drinks then. So what have you got with you? It's the evening. We're recording this in the evening time. So are you risking the caffeine, or have you got something caffeine free? Or
caffeine hardly touches me, actually. I've got some Sainsbury's Red Label tea in a strongly sort of tanned, cheap white Poundland cup, and inside is I could probably scrape the tea from the day from inside it. It's sort of gone a sort of clay kind of colour the inside of my white cup. I've drunk a lot of tea today. Yeah.
Are you one of those people then who doesn't wash their cups in between each filler? Because like you start to get that lovely kind of golden inside of it. You just keep filling it up.
Why do you wash your cups in between each bag of tea?
Not anymore. I just don't have the time now. I just go and refill it.
Definitely.
But yeah, it just shows the amount of toil and effort you've been through for the whole day if you've got that lovely brown ring around the top. But anyway, enough about all that nonsense. So letting everybody where you're located at the moment. You're located in or just outside of Exeter, and you're the second guest actually from that area because I think it was episode 10 or 11. I spoke to Joanna Mendez, who works at the Met Office as a scientist. So yeah, we'll talk a little bit about what. I mean, have you ever had the chance to work with the folk at the Met Office? Is it the kind of thing that it's there, but you've never had the chance to kind of speak to people from there, or have you actually tried to contact them, or is it?
No, like when I was a really enthusiastic geography teacher, like over a decade ago, I went there, but I cannot remember for the life of me why I went. But I remember going to the building. I'm not actually on the outskirts of Exeter. I moved from London recently, and I'm actually bang in the centre of Exeter, which is absolutely fantastic to be in the heart of the city.
The heartbeat of the city.
Yeah.
All right, and so you moved about a bit, so that leads me quite lovely on to the next bit. So, so people may not be aware, but you are a National Geographic Immersion Explorer, or you were designated as an Immersion Explorer, which is absolutely incredible. Did they send you a gold frame for you to keep at home or anything like that?
Do you know what? Actually, I do have a frame somewhere with some pictures of the other people from the cohort. But what arrived first was sort of an email came through that remarkably similar to those dodgy emails you get from West Africa inviting you to sort of part with your money or to marry someone you've never met before. Like it was a complete scam email, and all the emerging explorers reported the same experience of not really believing what they were getting, and a lot of people ignoring the emails because it was just so extraordinary to get this strange email from National Geographic saying you've been awarded this prize. It was so abstract that yeah, I mean, I sat on it for a long time just thinking it was scam mail. Yeah.
It's got to be a scam because that is iconic. You know, you think of that just that golden square, that golden rectangle, and yeah. So I just wondered if you've got one that you can just stick your face through and stuff like that. But it does. You got it because you've done a lot of traveling, a lot of exploring. So so you're in Exeter. You've moved from London. You've been all these other places. So this might be a difficult question for you. I don't know. Or there might be something so substantial about your identity you might be able to fix on something. I don't know. So let's ask you this question. So all these places in the world that you've been, what do you reckon has formed Dan the man? Made you your identity. Kind of, what are the bits about you today which you carry with you? Is there a particular experience, place, which kind of forms your identity, or is there like a habit you've picked up from somewhere which you've kind of brought on as your character? I mean, where do you even start with someone with so much of your experience?
It's an interesting question. So I grew up in an army family, and that meant being sort of tucked away in boarding school for significant periods of time, but it also meant then having significant holidays where I'd get to see my family again, and I'd go and have quite interesting, exciting journeys quite often with my parents. I mean, I wasn't at boarding school when I was 4, but when I was 4, 5, 6, we lived in the United States, and I spent a lot of my time going out catching dangerous animals. And then we sort of spent some time in Belize, and I spent a lot of time catching dangerous animals. And then we went to Zimbabwe, and I spent a lot of time catching dangerous animals.
I sense a theme here.
Yeah, and we had a posting to Kuwait as well, and I used to go out to the desert to catch various dangerous animals. And I think I had lots of experiences going to different countries, which both helped me to see some of the injustices that exist in sort of the ecology of the world, but also in the various cultures of the world as well. And I think it was very hard to be sort of taken through the various societies that I was in with the upbringing I had, to not have both a sense of wonder of the world around us, but also a profound sense of the injustices that you experience when you have the privilege of visiting places in the way that I did. So, I can think these moments in time where, like, I remember actually we had a posting in Aldershot, and I was living in Fleet, where I had my first job at Welcome Break Motorway Services Station, if you've ever stopped there. And very close to there's a housing estate that's been built over the top of where I used to go rhododendron jumping as a child, and where I know there's this pond full of newts. And I think I can just remember these sort of particular moments where those newts are gone. The rhododendron bushes for rhododendron jumping, where I won the world championships, by the way, is also gone. And that kind of stuff sucks a little bit, doesn't it? And so you can see how these relationships with place and the environment and people and places take you towards a love of place and geography and trying to make sense of those things.
You see, now, some of my major privilege checks myself have come from travel as well. When I went to South Africa in 2003, that was my first real one. And just the journey from Joburg out to the Kruger National Park area, it was almost like you were going through a time warp, like as you were driving that transect through there. And then every step of the way, you're having your privilege rechecked again. And then I went out to Malawi 10 years afterwards for a teacher exchange. And, stayed with people. I've got some really good friends out there in Malawi now. But to then bring it back and have a look at something that's happening in your own space, your own community, that you can link back to your own childhood. You tell me that, how powerful is that compared to all of those other amazing experiences that you had? I mean, clearly you mentioned, Aldershot and the rhododendrons, all that kind of stuff, and the newts. That story is obviously, that experience obviously stayed with you and made you a big part of your identity.
We should. I mean, I think there's a really interesting thing at the moment in both the need, obviously, to celebrate diversity, and I really love the movement behind the sort of flourishing diversity and the respect to the fact that greater diversity and greater wisdom that you have through that diversity can actually lead to sort of better outcomes on ecological levels, cultural levels, all kinds of things. But at the same time, within this country at the moment, some of the diversity that we see and that's celebrated is ultimately also very divisive. North, south, east, west, urban, rural, Brexit, non-Brexit, all these different things. And I was speaking to some colleagues a couple of days ago who are working on, in relation to like the idea of a potential Tokyo National Park city. And the thing that they drew down, which I found really powerful, was this idea that although they were talking to people in Manila in the Philippines and Australia and South America and different places, that in all these different cultures, many of us at the moment share the same anxieties around our children's health, around air pollution, the ecological crisis, COVID, the climate crisis, these things. And although our cultural responses may be very different to those things, actually we have an awful lot in common, both through our anxieties, but also our hopes and dreams as well. And ultimately, the plight of newts is not the same as the plight of pangolins, quite clearly. But nonetheless, clearly you can also draw, a line between the two in terms of how people in various different places are neglecting or persecuting, animals that are around the world. And so although the lived experience may be very different from one place to another, I think some of the anxieties and injustices are very similar. And so you can transfer some of that knowledge and that wisdom, even if there are great differences.
We're in a time of history now where I think we need to connect with each other more based on these similar experiences, these similar feelings, these similar thoughts. And this is the way that we're going to come together. And to give another example, I've just written something. There's something coming up that the University of East Anglia are doing called the Butterfly Experiment, which is kind of based on that kind of thing, but kind of like how can small little things and experience manifest themselves and coalesce into potentially big changes. And when you were talking then, about things like that, just coming to mind the thing that I wrote today for it, and I'll just read the last paragraph I said and see what you think about it. So I said. So my piece was all about the reintroduction of wolves back into Yellowstone, which is a part of the world which I'm very, very got a lot of sentiment towards. So I've said here, while we may not all get to see wolves or visit the wilds of Yellowstone, we can observe the bee collecting its pollen, the worm turning the soil, or listen to the bird feed its chicks. Then to use nature's actions as an inspiration to join conservation efforts. So, in other words, you may not have that experience of the majestic wolf in the grandeur of Yellowstone, but you can observe that bee collecting its pollen. You can see that worm turning that soil and it having almost like the same impact on their ecosystem as that wolf would do to what it's done in Yellowstone. And Yeah,
Yeah,
and I'm also kind of realizing my privilege that I had been to Yellowstone and no friends out there and whatnot.
I'd extend that idea as well in terms of, when you're thinking about the ecology of cities and the ecology of places, and begin to imagine and see and think of the urban landscape as this landscape of cliff faces on buildings, and the buildings themselves contain caves, and those caves not only contain a diverse range of plants from around the world that would otherwise often live in rainforests, but spiders. Spiders. And for young people and adults, so many people want to champion the bees and all these animals they know in their gardens. But what about the spiders who are in the corner of your room? And what are you going to do about them? And I think there's something about recognizing that allowing the spider is also some form of like absolutely micro version of rewilding as well, right? Like allowing that spider into your home and not displacing it. So I think the conversation hasn't quite gone that far yet for a lot of people, but I think we need to think more about spiders.
I'm gonna go back to the person leading this project at UEA and say, now, can I just add in my last sentence the spider weaving its web?
Oh, you're going to add it. You're going to add it. So
I'm going to add it in there.
So what was your experience in Malawi that you brought back then?
Where do I start with that? The first thing that came to my mind as well. I mean, I got out of my system very, very quickly. This whole I understand that I'm a very white privileged top income, all of that kind of quote unquote basic privilege check 101. That was done. Yeah, that was done quite early, and I did have a lot of that when I went to South Africa 10 years prior. For me, there was one particular experience which was humbling, and that was a friend of ours was the head teacher of a village outside of the town of Dedza in Malawi, and called Mchenika. And in order to get there, the only way to get there that was passable was by a very bumpy dirt track road that you can't really drive down because the potholes are so big, you get your vehicle stuck and whatnot. So we had to go by bicycle. So then I at first thought, okay, so do we hire a bike? Do we bike ourselves? Well, that's all fine. I said, I don't mind a bit of that's all good. No, by bicycle taxi, right? So what happens is that you get this, you hire this bicycle taxi, and you sit on the pannier, basically a cushioned pannier on the back of this bicycle while they pedal you. I mean, how far was it? Was it 2 or 3 miles? But it took 2 hours. But it wasn't. I'll have to double check how far it was. But I was saying, do you want me to pedal for a bit? And do you want me? And things like that. He was like, no. This is my job. This is my job. It is my privilege to ride you out. These are the words. I'm proud and privileged to be taking you out here. This is my job, and all this kind of stuff. And then while we're riding on the back of this bicycle taxi, is just seeing, being able to absorb the landscape going by slowly enough to take it all in. And then just realize that these are not people which you see stereotypically on the TV or on Live Aid or Red Nose Day or anything like that. These are people living their lives, doing the best they can, most of the time joyfully, who know their challenges, but they're striving to overcome those challenges as well. They are communities, they are progressive what they can. And it's just, that is the greatest privilege check I've had, is knowing that these people are not helpless, knowing that these people are bright, they're ingenious, they're compassionate, they are determined. And if they had the tools that we have the privilege of having, my God, they could do things, So that was probably my biggest takeaway from a place like Malawi, which is supposedly, by our modern methods of measurement, of development, one of the poorest countries in the world. But fine, economically, maybe. Resource-wise, maybe. But in any other sense of the word, I don't think it's one of the poorest countries in the world at all. In fact, I saw quite a lot of richness there, not in the traditional ways. So that was my biggest takeaway from going to Malawi, I think.
Yeah, what experience. It's all very sad, isn't it? I mean, fundamentally, as both are very interested in education, it comes down to education, and
it really does.
And too many people in the world just don't have the opportunities they should have that would unlock their talents, which is what I think what you're describing there. Yeah. Very sad. And it
is
what we see unfolding under our eyes like on the news at the moment in Afghanistan is a great demonstrator of that really as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And just to timestamp everybody, so we're recording this exactly as those troubles are hitting the news right now. So So we're in kind of mid-August at the moment as we're recording this, and heaven knows what the situation is when people are listening to this in a couple of months' time. Dan, so let's move on with regards to this next thing that I'm really intrigued about what you're saying about playing hide and seek. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by play? You're not like hiding and seeking against these dangerous animals and then pouncing on them or something like that. So what do you mean by playing hide and seek?
Well, isn't geography really just a big game of hide and seek? Really. I mean, and any way you look at it, whether you're thinking about our sort of emotions and our relationships to ourselves and others, and our ability to sort of both reveal ourselves to ourselves, and our sort of hunting for our discovery of ourselves, and how that changes through the moment, the day, our places and where we are and what we're trying to do, and our relationship with others and trying to make sense of our relationships to those other people and searching for those things. But then right up to everything from logistics and ordnance survey and the army and all this stuff. Ultimately, I think that people are hiding and seeking. But for me, the origins of that point really is I just love playing hide and seek. I've loved it since I was a child. I still love organising a game of hide and seek now. And to be honest, if I was to get sort of more picky about hide and seek, what I really enjoy is massive, like wide games that involve either playing sort of capture the flag, but I have a particular sort of pleasure in playing very large games of sardines with adults, almost at a professional level, ideally at night time, so that you have like 30 or 40 people running around a wood trying to find the one person who's hiding. And there's no winner. There's just one person who doesn't win. So I love hide and seek at all levels, from the playful to the psychological through to just the mammoth scale at which I think that's kind of what everyone's really working at.
I love that. In fact, the last thing I did as a teacher was we did some student leadership stuff, and one of the team building exercises was basically at dusk. We all got bitten by midges like no one's business, but we didn't really care because we were having so much fun actually playing like capture the flag. And it was in a wood. It was like half in a woodland, half in this like mown area, but also the very tall grass. It was really amazing. It was fantastic, and every single teacher was involved as well as the kids. It was just such a laugh.
The trick is to go up trees. People don't look up trees. The trick is to go up a tree, go high, but then as people come looking for you, you then move yourself through 360 degrees around the top of the tree, and you can last for hours that way.
Why not think of that?
Verging on boring for everyone else, but good fun as a hider.
I'm gonna have to try that one out. I'm gonna I don't know if I'm gonna if this is a treat for you or it's gonna cause you a bit of agony, Dan, but I've written something for you.
Oh yeah?
So we can talk about the next thing, right? Let's see what you can guess what the Northwell I'm talking about. So hopefully I'll get the pronunciations right, okay? So I've written a poem, but this is only one of the verses because I need to refine the other ones, but I think I'm onto something here. Trudging outwards from the node of Norwich, Wymnor, Mulnor, Tavnor, while Yarven strikes across the Isle of Wight, alone Browhi walks the Arran shore. Be these giants of old and legend that strode the claim terrain? No, the likes of Solhen, Shiban and Salfor are paths across our domain.
Oh, I love that so much. Doesn't that sound Tolkien-esque as well? I love that poem. That makes me very happy. Yeah.
I thank you so much for comparing it to Tolkien.
Don't you think that's Tolkien-esque? I think it's great. Yeah, you can imagine.
Now that you mentioned it,
you imagine Frodo like reading that out or something. Yeah, definitely.
We'll do a bit of dwarves chorus, shall we? So what on earth, for people who are like, what is going on here? What am I talking about here, Dan?
So you've rather beautifully picked up on Slowways, which is an initiative I started that's all about creating a network of walking routes connecting all the towns and cities in the UK. And while everyone was saying at the beginning that we should just give all the different routes numbers, I felt very strongly we should give them all names. And each Slowway combines the first three letters of the two settlements that are being connected, and that then gives you a Slowway name. And most of your words then were different names of Slowways around the Isle of Wight and like Yarven and around Norwich. But what you may be interested to know is that it's a big community project. But one of the tasks we had was to go through about 7,000 Slowways names and pick out the rude ones.
Yes.
and there was about 200 to 300 slowway names that were just so offensive, and not even just offensive, almost like Cards Against Humanity, kind of like desperately disgusting sort of like ideas and words. And so if you discover any slowways that have more than 6 letters, it's either because they're like in Wales and there's like, like Lala and Abba and all this stuff, or it's because embedded inside that word that there is something really quite horrible. And we did keep a lot of really naughty names as well. I can't remember what they are. Like there are some involving like we and, all this kind of stuff around the place, which are sort of like, very sort of Victorian in their kind of allowances of street names almost. But we had to get rid of some. They were just so inappropriate that we had to sanitize them.
I was part of that process. I was one of the people who helped out with that. But I didn't get to see many shocking ones myself. I wonder if it's because they were all taken and filtered by that, or maybe the pot that I was given didn't have so many. But that is so cool. If I come across now, you've set everybody a challenge now, because people can go on to slowways.org, and if they come across a route that's more than 6 letters, and they check the 2 places, the 3 letters of the places, they're like, I know why they changed that one.
It's either because there's like a whole load of places in the country, like all the places in Wales that begin ABBA, and so we had to add exactly. So we had to add letters just to make each slowway name unique. But a lot of the time, they're just fairly filthy terms that had to be mixed up.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing that, and I've evaluated one route or part of one route already. So everybody, this is what you can go and do. So there's a period of validation and evaluation going on now. So if you go onto the Slowways website and you see if there's any, or if you're going to go away somewhere, you can check to see what routes are near you, or just from your home, you can see if there's any routes near you. Go for a walk along it, and then you can actually go onto the Slowways website, and then you can provide a little critique, a little review, and which helps people to do that. So the one that I did, Dan, with my family, we went to Blickling Hall in Norfolk. And the route we went was the Owl Crow. So Owl, which is Aylsham, Crow, Cromer, Aylsham to Cromer. So we walked part of that, which went past Blickling Hall. We gave it 4 stars out of 5 because some of it was on roads, which, a little bit blind corners and stuff like that. So, nice. It's just a lovely community thing.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for both helping with the filthy words and also walking the slowway. But just to repitch it slightly, I mean, it's about evaluating and reviewing, but there are 100,000 kilometres of routes that have been created by volunteers. And actually, it's a way of reimagining how you can walk through the landscape. So lots of people will be familiar with national trails, which go the usual routes that lots of people go. But I don't know, let's say you're in Slough and you kind of want to take yourself to Huddersfield. We're going to have an adventurous way for you to complete that route. Yeah, an interesting way to complete that route. Which is what's so exciting about it, I think, is that it's both extraordinary, but so like fundamentally everyday as well.
Oh, now that might explain. I mean, you might just say, it's just because we didn't map it yet, Kit. But would that explain why? Because the from between Diss and Norwich is the Boudica Way, or the Boudicca Way, however you want to pronounce it, but it's spelt as Boudica around here. Most of that's not mapped on Slowways. Is it because it's a major route and it's like or it's just not appeared on yet, and I can still suggest it?
Well, no, it's that although historic routes are very important and beautiful and lovely things to go and walk, they don't actually necessarily fit today's geography at all. So, things like the Pilgrim's Way, the Monarch's Way, the Ridge Way, are all important, or like Offa's Dyke. I mean, Offa's Dyke is a great walk to go and do, but it's not particularly relevant. I mean, the situation between the sort of English and the Welsh isn't quite so ferocious at the moment that it's actually like necessary as a route. So actually, Ramblers have a great campaign which is all about protecting footpaths from the past, and they're a delight to walk. But we have new towns now. Like we've got Milton Keynes, and we've got Beaconsfield and places that weren't around when the Romans were around, I don't think.
And Harlow, where I'm from,
yeah. And so actually, we need new paths for the future. So Slowways picks up on where people need to go in the future and currently, rather than just following the old routes, although they are lovely too.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. And so if people want to see some examples, so when me and the family hiked a little bit of Owl Crow, I put a few pictures up on there. So we've got a picture of a bridge crossing crossing the River Bure, I think it was. We've got, and this was a really fascinating thing. We came across, it's like a folly gate, a folly wall and a folly gate, where it doesn't actually lead to anywhere. So it's just a wall and a gate, and they've got stone lions on each of the pillars. But quite clearly they don't use it because it's mown. There's no tyre tracks. There's nothing like. It's a folly. It's there just for show.
Did you rob the lions?
Oh no! I felt like I would have been told off.
So then you didn't see the secret gateway to a parallel universe. If only you'd known.
I'm just gonna have to hike it again then.
Yep.
As simple as that. Right, everybody, check this out. It's a fantastic initiative. If there's something that you can do which is synergetic to make you feel a bit more in tune, a bit more in control of what we're doing, give you a bit of agency, why not have a look at this Slowways thing? Yeah, because it's an amazing thing. It gets you out there, gets to see things that you don't usually see. You're walking rather than taking modes of transport. You get to just look at it. It's fantastic. It's slowways.org, won't it? So
it's also like I think a really big, beautiful piece of citizen geography.
It so is.
It's all about exploring and maps and what's not to like.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and so thank you for leading that and the team on there, and I'll get to work on refining this poem, and then I'll send it your way. And
please,
okay, listeners, once I give this poem to Dan and we publish it, right? If you have walked any of the routes that I put in the poem, get in touch, because let's make a piece of art out of this. Yeah. Like, especially if you've taken a picture or a bit of video or something on one of these routes. We've got something here. I'm so excited already. A couple of last things to do then. We'll end on a bit of fun. We're going to be a bit of randomness now. We're going to do what was called Jog On. 5 topics, one after the other, and you get to choose to talk about them if you so wish by saying Jog On Kit. We'll have a talk about that. Or, and this is no pun on Slowways, but if you don't want to talk about it, you say take a hike.
So jog on or take a hike.
Jog on means I'd like to talk about it.
Okay.
GEOG.
Yeah.
ON.
I'm on you.
Or take a hike if you don't want to talk about it. Right. So the first topic is volcanoes. This is completely random. Completely random. Volcanoes is the first topic. Jog on or take a hike?
Yeah, I'll jog on and chat about volcanoes if you want. I had an interesting experience where I nearly killed myself on a volcano in Sao Tome, which is a small island in the Gulf of Guinea. Essentially I went on a hike to climb up this volcano with a guy with wellies, and just the higher up we got, the dodgier it was to come back down again, and we had to sort of peak this very, very tall, very, very sharp edged volcano where if we were to fall we would have died, but I was very relieved we got to the top because the other side was a bit more shallow. But I literally climbed up this volcano thinking that I was going to die and that I was really regretting making the decision. There we go. That's my volcano experience.
Climbing up a volcano, wellies.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It was a very sharp-edged volcano as well. Like it was a.
Did you have wellies left after that? Were they intact?
No, the wellies were fine. It was the more the life thing that was the concern rather than the wellies.
Okay. The second random topic where you can jog on or take a hike is hockey.
Yeah, take a hike.
All right. Okay. 3 topics left. 2 of them you've got to talk about. Okay. The third topic that came up on my random generator was psychiatry.
Psychiatry? Yeah, take a hike. Can I take a hike on that one as well?
Yeah, okay, but that does mean you have to talk about the last 2 things. So, research. Any anecdote about research from your experience, Dan?
I mean, not really. I'm going to go back to psychiatry.
All right, go on then. I'll let you.
I found it very interesting learning recently about how our emotional well-being and emotional health can actually change the neurology of our brains and can actually physically change us. And how this classic idea of emotional harm being separated from physical harm is not actually separated off at all. And how, as adults and children progress through their lives, your literal brain can shrink or expand to cope with or respond to stresses you've been through. And I think the idea that someone's life may be limited because of the emotions they're put through, I think is a very powerful expression for people about why we need to act more on so many different mental health issues. And I think it's also interesting then to connect that through to geography in terms of the ways in which the physical environment around us also then affects our mental health and well-being, and how that then affects the physiology of our bodies and our ability to then cope with the environments we're in. And it's more psychology than psychiatry, I guess, maybe, in terms of what that might mean. But I find the psychogeography of how all those things interrelate absolutely fascinating and disturbing all at the same time. And schools need to be doing far more, to think about well-being in that very holistic way.
Totally agree with you. And a shameless plug here is one of the things that I've been trying to do, and I know you've seen a bit, is that I'm trying to get senior leadership teams at school to understand that stuff like climate change, climate anxiety is a safeguarding issue, and they need to be treating it as such. We've got statutory guidance regarding mental health. We've got statutory guidance, of course, about safeguarding. And that you see all the risk factors that climate change and ecological breakdown brings, and then how we can support our children to promote the protective factors. So I am completely 100% on board on that. And when I did my most recent mental health first aid training, actually that was brought up as a topic of discussion about the ecological breakdown and whatnot. So yeah, and we're doing something at the University of East Anglia we're doing a climate anxiety workshop where we'll be bringing in mindfulness and embodied movement, to reconnect with nature and stuff.
And we know about all that because of research that people do and research that we do. So it all just loops back to research perfectly.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Right, the fifth and final topic then is milk.
Milk.
Yep. So you have to jog on this one.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I think of when I think of milk, I used to drink gallons and gallons of milk when I was growing up. Like, I just go and sort of get, just constantly just drink pints and pints of milk. I can't believe how much I went through. But what it makes me think of actually is, I'm vegan now and have been some time, and it just makes me think of this sort of really big concept of speciesism. And I think that obviously people have very understandable concerns now around lots of isms, not least racism. But I think there is a very near future when far more people are conscious of speciesism as an idea. And I think actually if we can't get over our speciesism, then I think that on a moral, philosophical, cultural level, we can never have a proper relationship with the natural world. I think as long as we have a really horrible relationship with cows and chickens, then why should we care about other birds or other mammals of a similar size? I think there's something inherently problematic in telling children they can eat an unlimited number of chickens, or kill off an unlimited number of young bullocks so they can have their milk, and yet somehow we should be looking after these other sort of species. I think there's an incongruence in that logic, which I think is really problematic. But it bites at the core of who we are so much that people find it very, very difficult emotionally, again, to sort of deal with those sort of ideas.
That's really intriguing. That I've never had it framed in that way before. I mean, it now makes sense. The way that you've put that, and the same sort of point was made in a comical sense by the punk biologist Lucy Eckersley. I think that was episode 11. I think, and she actually, in a comedic sense, because what was it? Oh yeah, because she did the random words thing as well, and she had farmers markets, and she said that her dad brought home some sausages, but the conversation that he had with the farmer was that the farmer names all the pigs, and so when they bought the sausages, said this comes from Clive the pig, and her dad could not bring himself to eat those sausages because the name was attached to them. I cannot eat those Clive sausages, she was saying. I cannot eat those Clive sausages. And then Lucy would say, well, Lucy said to her dad, apparently, well, just extend that feeling, Dad, kind of thing. I see really interesting that those two stories are kind of really mixed there. So everybody, if you just heard Dan say that was really profound. I really, really did like the way that Dan put that. Go back to episode 11 near the end and you'll hear Lucy say that. And then you can, maybe those two different ways of framing it will get you to make those connections there. Thank you so much for that, Dan. Right, we're going to do our last little thing now, which is We Are All Geographers. And this is where we attempt to connect all of the Coffee and Geography guests by getting them to challenge each other with a word, which they can link to geography. Now, I had an absolute blast last week because I got to speak to ex-students of mine all at the same time. It was chaos. absolutely chaos, and they ganged up on me, know what, and it was lovely. And if you've worked with young people, you just know how lovely that was. And I did kind of drop a hint about who I was speaking to this week, which was yourself, and they want to turn your words against you, Dan, right?
Okay.
So, because when you sign up to come on a podcast, and the question I ask is, what can you not link to geography, or what do you think is as far removed from geography as possible? You actually put, I think that's an impossible question, right? And I would agree with you. But kids being kids, they were like, all right then, we want to give you the word impossible. So you have got 30 seconds, Dan, to link the word impossible to geography in any way, shape or form you think you can. Geography, geographical processes, whatever. So would you like a few seconds to think about it, or do you reckon you want to jump straight in?
Well, I can jump straight in. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, my brain goes to two places at the same time. One is about like the block universe and the impossibilities of that in terms of your ability to travel around the block universe. One line of thought. The other one is just the sadness of all the geographies of impossibilities of people not being able to do things because of where they're born, essentially. People who will not be able to succeed in life or live as long as they could do because of where they're born in the world, or because of their wider ambitions. But also the impossibilities of us being able to tackle various crises around the world at the moment as well. So actually,
very poignant.
The sad thing about the word impossible is it takes you down all these very, very dark avenues of impossibilities. And we can all think of the various crises, but many academic geographers would probably put the in brackets and talk about the possible. And actually, if you flip that on its head and start thinking about the geographies of the possible, then actually that turns into something extremely hopeful about what we all have in us and what many people have in themselves and what they can achieve wherever they are, or with the things they have, in spite or despite of the impossibilities of their situation as well, depending on your philosophy on time, space, fatefulness, and whether or not we have any choice. And if you want to go down that route, then maybe there are no possibilities. And only anyway, you could get quite philosophical about it, I guess. But yeah. I'd flip on its head and talk about the possibilities. I think is what I'd rather talk.
I love that.
Yeah,
I have never been so happy to just let someone carry on past that 30-second buzzer. That was lovely. And David Alcock, I know you were our guest. This is my second or third guest, I think. I know you've been listening every single week. I know you just love that answer from Dan. So David is doing his research and stuff about hopeful geography and hopeful education.
Perfect.
So I think he's going to absolutely love what you've just said there, Dan. Thank you so much. Right then, so for our next guest, then we have your chance to come up with a word of your choice, and everybody knows. But I mean, this is what, episode 23, I think. Everybody knows what I'm doing here. They know it's not to try and trip up the next guest. It's just to say, right, how would you approach this in terms of geography? So what words would you like to give our following guest a chance to link back to the world of geography?
I think purpose is very important in life. And so I'd like them to talk on the geographies of purpose, or the purpose of their geographies.
Lovely. And however they so wish to approach that and frame that. Wonderful, Dan. Thank you so much. Right. So to finish off then, I want people to know how they can follow your work, get in contact with you, and whether you've got anybody to say hi and some shout outs to. So where can we find you, and who would you like to say hi to?
I am going to say hello to Mushroom, my cat, who is still unable to particularly communicate with any other sentient being in the universe. And in the spirit of the show, all geographers in the universe, both in our ancestry and all those in future generations to come as well, which is a lot of geographers, considering that everyone really is a geographer as well. And I've got a bunch of projects people can get involved with. Slowways, come and help walk 100,000 routes, please. 100,000 kilometers of routes, please. We need help with that. Get involved in the National Park City movement as well. Check out my films, UK National Parks, UK in 100 Seconds. And connect on Twitter. Yeah, Dan Raven-Ellison. I love connecting with geographers on Twitter.
Yep. And seriously, everybody do that. What's so inspirational about the work that you do, Dan, is that you seem to have this innate ability to take an idea that maybe a lot of us have, but we're just not quite sure either how to apply it or how to approach it in that way that can just make people's eyes light up. But you seem to have that ability where I've seen a couple of your things. I thought, not just why didn't I think of that? It was more of a case of, I could never have applied it that way. That is just incredible. So thank you so much for your time, your effort, your talent, and what you do for the geography community, because it is, I can tell you on behalf of everybody, you have enriched so many geographers' experiences, let's just put it that way. And I just wish you the very, very best of luck with all your future endeavours, and I'll be keeping pestering you for no doubt. So, well, you've made a pest of me, I'm afraid.
We're not going to have a sit-in love fest at this late in the day, but thank you for your thank you for your energy and your connectivity and everything you're bringing to our community as well, because it's really powerful and really important. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Dan. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you had fun. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe so more stories and experiences can drop into your favourite podcast app. If you fancy being a guest or have any feedback, follow us on Twitter at coffeegeogpod and send us a DM. Or you could email coffeeandgeog@geogramblings.com. Until next time, keep geogging.